Imagine a time when mathematics leapt forward, when stories that shaped world literature were written, when art and science flourished like a supernova of creativity, a time so extraordinary that historians literally call it the Golden Age. Welcome to the world of the Gupta Empire, one of the brightest chapters in India's history, an era that didn't just shine, it sparkled. Today, we're diving into what made the Gupta Age so special, how it influenced the world we live in today, and why it still fascinates historians, scientists, and dreamers alike. So buckle up, because we're traveling nearly 1700 years back in time. The Gupta Empire rose around the early 4th century CE, founded by a king named Sri Gupta. But it didn't explode into greatness until the reign of Chandragupta I, a bold, smart, and opportunistic leader who built alliances, conquered territories, and laid the foundation for what we now call the Golden Age. His son, Samudragupta, took things to a whole new level. Imagine a ruler who was not just a fierce warrior, but also a poet, musician, and patron of the arts. The man basically had Renaissance man energy, 1,000 years before the Renaissance. Under Samudragupta, the empire expanded dramatically, from the Himalayan foothills in the north to central India and parts of the south. But even more importantly, he established peace and stability, and peace is the soil in which genius grows. One of the greatest treasures of the Gupta period wasn't gold or gems, it was peace. Historians often call this era Pax Guptana, the Gupta peace, similar to Pax Romana in ancient Rome. Here's why this mattered. Farmers could work the land without fear of invasion. Trade routes stayed open and safe. Scholars, artists, and mathematicians had the freedom to experiment. Cities grew wealthier and more vibrant. Basically, when people aren't busy running from invaders, they can focus on, changing the world. Now let's talk about something so important that modern civilization literally couldn't exist without it. Zero. The number that gives meaning to all other numbers. Although the symbol for zero evolved over centuries, the Gupta age saw its first practical use in mathematics, especially through the works of Aryabhata, one of the greatest mathematicians in history. Aryabhata wasn't just dropping formulas, he was dropping revolutionary concepts. Zero as a placeholder, decimally based place value system, approximate value of pi to astonishing accuracy, trigonometric functions and sine tables, and the idea that the Earth rotates on its axis. Yes, over 1,000 years before Copernicus, Aryabhata wrote that the Earth spins, creating day and night. The Gupta Empire wasn't just keeping up with global science, it was leading it. So, Gupta astronomers weren't just stargazers. They were, honestly, cosmic detectives. Aryabhata and, later scholars created astronomical models so accurate that they were used all across Asia for centuries. They calculated eclipses, mapped out planetary paths, and even estimated the length of a solar year with, stunning precision. And get this, all of this was done without telescopes, just pure math, keen observation, and some truly brilliant minds. While mathematicians were figuring out the universe, Gupta physicians were busy figuring out the human body. The legendary Dr. Charaka's medical texts were refined and honestly widely studied. But even more influential was Sushruta, who's often called the father of surgery. Sushruta's work included detailed surgical procedures, descriptions of 120 surgical instruments, techniques for plastic surgery, including early forms of nose reconstruction, and insights on fractures, wounds, and childbirth. It's really no exaggeration to say Gupta medical knowledge was centuries ahead of Europe's at the time. When it comes to art, the Gupta age was, kind of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Blockbuster after blockbuster. Some highlights. In sculpture, Gupta sculptors perfected the iconic serene image of the Buddha, with gentle expressions, flowing robes, and proportions based on sacred geometry. These sculptures became the classic blueprint for Buddhist art across Asia, China, Japan, Thailand, Korea, you name it. In architecture, Gupta architects pioneered structural temples, including the famous Dashavatara temple at Deoghar, one of the earliest stone temple masterpieces in India. And in painting, the Ajanta caves, decorated during the Gupta era, contain some of the most breathtaking murals in the world, depicting human emotion with such realism that they still mesmerize visitors today. If the Gupta Empire had a star celebrity, it would be Kalidasa, often called the Shakespeare of India. His works were emotional, dramatic, witty, philosophical, and visually rich. His epic play Shakuntala captivated audiences for centuries and was one of the first Sanskrit works translated into European languages in the Enlightenment. Gupta literature spanned poetry, drama, epics, grammar, and philosophy. The empire encouraged creativity and funded huge translation projects. The result? A literary explosion. The Gupta period saw the rise of Nalanda University, one of the earliest residential universities on earth. Nalanda attracted thousands of students from Japan, China, Korea, Tibet, and Southeast Asia. Subjects taught included philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, linguistics, logic, and Buddhism. Imagine a campus so advanced that it had libraries with hundreds of thousands of manuscripts arranged across multiple massive buildings. Nalanda was the Ivy League of the ancient world, long before the idea of a university even existed elsewhere. During the Gupta age, India wasn't an isolated land. It was a buzzing hub in global trade. Caravans and ships carried Indian textiles, spices, metalwork, and precious stones to Rome, Southeast Asia, Africa, China, and the Middle East. Evidence of Roman gold coins in India shows just how profitable this trade was. The Guptas also minted beautiful gold coins called dinars, showcasing kings in dynamic poses, archery, equestrian feats, even playing the lyre. These coins were statements of wealth, stability, and artistic refinement. So, the Gupta period didn't impose religious uniformity. Instead, it actually encouraged dialogue and diversity. Hinduism flourished, sure, but so did Buddhism and Jainism. Temples, monasteries, and sacred art blended spiritual traditions instead of, just competing. This harmony helped create a culture where ideas could really spread freely, where creativity wasn't restricted, and where scholars from different backgrounds could collaborate. No golden age lasts forever. By the late 5th century, the empire faced several challenges: invasions, especially from the Hunna, or White Huns, succession disputes, regional powers asserting independence, and economic strain. By around 550 CE, the once mighty empire fragmented. But the knowledge and cultural brilliance it produced never disappeared. Its influence actually continued in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and even medieval Europe. The Gupta legacy outlived the empire by centuries. Let's just recap a few things we owe to this era. 0. The decimal system. Early astronomical science breakthroughs in medicine and surgery, masterpieces of art, drama, and literature, the world's first major residential universities, architectural styles that influenced Asia, and peace-driven prosperity. In many ways, the modern world stands on foundations first shaped during this remarkable period. The Gupta Golden Age wasn't just a chapter in history. It was a moment in time when human creativity really soared, when artists, scientists, kings, poets, and philosophers worked together to push the boundaries of what was possible. It reminds us of something powerful. When a society values learning, peace, and imagination, it creates light that echoes for centuries. So the next time you use a calculator, admire a sculpture, read a play, or look up at the night sky, remember that part of that brilliance is a gift from the ancient Gupta Empire. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this journey into India's golden past, hit that like button, subscribe for more historical deep dives, and tell us in the comments, which civilization's golden age should we explore next?